Two cameras don't work, you know, but yet show these lights up again here, because some rich kid who wants to
commandeer,
take over our studio and he's going to do it as public access, so it'll go out as public access, but he's going to record it and put commercials on it for a commercial station. Now, the town has put in these lights for him, to cater to him. You know, this is over $5,000 worth of lights sitting up here, and they're supposed to put $5,000 worth of equipment, of money into this studio. Actually, they're supposed to put a lot more into it. They were getting, Jeremy Wilbur told me, they were getting $120,000 every year from Time Warner Cable to let the cables come through the town, of which $5,000 goes into the studio, and the other $115,000 goes into the general fund. Now that money is being misappropriated as far as I'm concerned. A big portion of that money, I could see maybe half of it going into the general fund, because you could run this studio every year on half without a problem and keep everything upgraded. But to only give $5,000, that was an intentional, to let this all run down, hoping that we, the producers, would get so fed up with the broken down equipment and you can't do a show here, that we would go away. But we didn't go away. We found ways around the problems.
We post on Facebook.
All right, let me jump in for a second.
Okay,
now
take it away, George.
Here's an interesting concept that you brought up, that these rich young kids or guys have, you know, commandeered our studio here. When I say our, I don't mean just the producers. This is, you know, the community of Woodstock and really surrounds, because this is the only actual functioning TV studio. Kingston's gone black. Saugerties is ridiculous in terms of its original content. There's not very much that's really, you know, I mean, you can read about their library schedule. That's kind of cool. Anyway, the point is, if these guys want to do TV shows, right, and they've got X amount of money behind them, they don't need this space. This is a very humble little space. They could set up their cameras and their lights, because they're going to replace all these cameras because they don't work. See, where I'm going here is if they want to do commercial TV to put on another channel somewhere else, which I think is ridiculous, they have to use this venue, because this venue is going to be transformed into another kind of a production scheme. That's what really is going on here. Because if they did want to do, you know, pre-recorded shows to broadcast on another channel, they don't need this space.
But let me jump in again now on what you're saying. But what this space has is, we have a channel, Channel 23, you know, and Channel 23 right now is public access. But if they kill public access, then a commercial brand can be put on Channel 23. And all of a sudden, this studio could be broadcasting on Channel 23, you know? And that's what I see as what they're heading for. Yeah, you know, there's no proof to it, but it sure appears that way. Why else would they be putting all this, without putting any money in this studio for us public access producers and the people of this community, or anyone who wanted to use it, to get a better product. But they've now put more than that $5,000 just in these lights for these guys. And they want to put a glass panel across, like most professional studios have a glass panel across the counter to separate the equipment or the people who are running the camera switchers or whatever. The
control booth.
The control booth. They want to put the glass panel across there. None of us producers have asked for that, and none of us producers have asked for these lights up here. We've asked for 3 cameras that work, for DVD players that can function to do what we need them to do, for a telephone that if someone calls in, like I know George Conant, Steve Romine has people that he would want to call in to do a show as a call-in show.
I've had people call in.
Well, I was going to go to you, and me and Paula also have people that we want to have call in. But this phone here the battery goes dead in 3 minutes. So you can't have a call-in person. You can't have a guest speaker. Like there's someone out in California, and you can't bring him into the studio. He could call in on the phone, which we do on our radio shows. We have people call in from different states, and we do radio shows. Well, that could be done here, but the town board won't put a new telephone in, so we can do proper shows with call-ins. You know, there's so many things we've asked them to do, but no, they're putting in lights for these new guys who've never been here before, and they want to put in a sound panel that none of us have asked for. You know, we have other priorities that are way more important than these lights. These lights, the lights that we have work quite well for what we do. You know, this conglomerate that we have over our head right now is overkill, even for a professional thing. They don't need the kind of as many lights as they've got here in such a small space. You know, I've heard it said that the reason they're putting these lights in and want to put a sound panel is because these new guys that are coming in know a lot about production and about TV stuff. Well, you know what? My wife Paula did a TV show down in a professional studio down in Manhattan, in one of the best professional studios down in Manhattan. She had a 5-day-a-week show for 12 years.
Sometimes went live.
And actually quite often went live, you know. And
I did the bank fraud.
right, until we did bank fraud, and then they came after us, until we exposed the banks. Right, but then this town board never treated her like, oh, she knows what she's doing. She's done this before. She's a professional. I do a show down there. Both my show still goes out. Her show went out to 650,000 houses, much more than goes out on this little TV station here. My show goes out to 650,000 houses, and I've been doing it for 7 years, every Saturday night for 7 years, you know. And I've been in that professional studio and done my shows from that professional studio, but they never considered me a professional or or was willing to take my advice on what might be needed here in the studio or Paula's. But now you got this guy Chase, who made some TV shows, and all of a sudden, oh, he's the intelligent guy who knows everything about broadcast, when you have people, and I'm sure there's been other people besides us in this studio over the years who have had real technical knowledge or real ability to work in a professional studio, know how it operates, and they ignored them. All of a sudden, I see the writing on the wall, folks. They're going to take our channel away from us. They're going to drive out. They got rid of me as the president and Paula.
They thought.
Well, yeah, they thought. I mean, they're not got rid of me. Besides, actually, right now, I want to go on to another topic. In order to preserve my rights and to fight these people, I put in what's called a notice of lien.
Common law.
A common law notice of lien, right? And I made an affidavit of truth stating all the violations that Bill McKenna's done, and I gave him a chance to rebut it, right? Which, when you put in an affidavit, the other side should put in an affidavit rebutting, which he failed to do on my first 2 affidavits. My third one's coming, but I'm really loading the next one up with law, you know, like crazy, you know. But I didn't really want to go after his property. I just wanted to let him know, you better back off because I can. And I gave him 2 notices of liens, which he defaulted on, right? Now I'm going to put in a 3rd notice of lien. But when I gave him the notice of liens, I said, you can cure this problem, and I won't go after your property. I won't go after your bank account. I won't go after your nice, shiny automobile, pickup truck, right? I won't go after it if you just rectify your wrong. In other words, allow us to get the key and do what public access shows like we were doing before your dictates, and I won't follow through on this. Well, the first one I said that, he ignored. Second one I said that, he ignored. He thinks he's above the law. He thinks he can get away with anything. He don't realize I really know law. I've been studying law for 40 years, you know. Now, when I give him the 3rd one, if he don't rectify it, then I can lien his properties, right? Now also, that's just one of my options, because I know law pretty good. There's a Supreme Court ruling that says when someone's constitutional rights are violated, they can go to the federal prosecutor, and the federal prosecutor has no choice but to go after the people who violated the rights. So I can either file this lien and take his property, the 3rd lien, or I could go to the federal prosecutor, and it says, and the Supreme Court has ruled, I wish I had the actual site right now to read to you, but the Supreme Court has ruled that the federal prosecutor must go after the person who violated the rights. Bill McKenna has clearly violated our rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press.
He's exceeded his jurisdiction.
Exceeding his authority, violating his oath of office. Now a second one, when someone in public office violates the Constitution under our form of law, and I got a bunch of Supreme Court rulings that back this up too, that's treason. When you commit treason, you lose your office. You know, Bill McKenna cannot be the town dictator any longer. If I take him into federal court and prove that he's committed treason by violating the Constitution, he can't hold office. So, Bill, you got a chance to rectify and let me, Paula, and George have access to back to this studio like we had for me and Paula for 7 years, George for over 80 shows.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Before you came up with this dictator stuff. You know, Bill, you're not the Lord God Emperor of Woodstock. Just quit acting like it. You want to add to that, George?
Well, yeah. The only thing I can really add to that is our viewers out there. You know, Steve's got a very good following with his Truth Squad show, and he's educated a lot of people and really motivated a lot of people to get involved with a lot of issues of the day. Joe and Paula each have their respective audiences, and one of the things that public access did to another fellow producer down in Manhattan, Lydia Radin, who's been following our situation here, responded to one of our other producers that public access saved her life, because Joe and Paula brought her story to the public through public access, and saved her life. And the way she put it is that that's doing God's work. So I'd never really kind of took it to that level, thinking about public access and participating with this right. And First Amendment right to the airwaves. That you people out there that have been following my show and all these other shows, that can change very quickly now. It could all be gone, and perhaps a little phone, shoot some phone calls or emails into Bill McKenna and Jackie Early and Clayton Keefe and other people in the town board, Lauren Rose, and I don't know all their names, and voice your opinion that you're watching what's going on here, and if you want us to keep putting out information for you and keep both public access alive in not only Woodstock but in New York State and the rest of our country, each station that actually has original content from original content producers like ourselves is really important. Every even if it's a small town like Saugerties or Woodstock or let's see, we go here.
Bill McKenna's number.
All right, so you can call Bill McKenna at 679. That's 845-679-2113, extension 17. Okay, that's 845-679-2113, extension 17. And that's the town supervisor, Bill McKenna. And, tell him that you want your public access to be vibrant, to be upgraded properly, and that the real parties of interest, which are the original content producers of public access TV, board of producers, and other TV producers, continue to be allowed to put forth their message and their shows and their content. I can't really understate how important it is that we be able to report to you things that are actually going on, not just entertainment or infotainment, but the real deal, things that are really going on, as I've reported that in my experience with the courts, and the degree to which I have learned how the court system and the law enforcement systems work together to herd us along, folks. We're being fleeced, and there's so much going.
Well, there's that opportunity to do it.
Yes,
they are doing.
They are doing it.
It's happening.
It is happening.
I know Clayton Keefe feels bad about it. It's not what he wants to happen.
No, there's a lot of good people. I always say this, whenever you're talking about organizations, and it could be a government organization, a religious organization, or a civic organization, or a baseball team, you're going to have good people and bad people in it. I used to call that people problems, when I had a restaurant and a staff to manage. You have people problems, or you have, wonderful people that aren't a problem, and so what really seems to be the problem for Bill McKenna and whoever it is that he's fronting for with this agenda for this particular venue is
he's in violation of the law.
Well, he's in violation of the law, but it's just not genuine. There is a real obfuscation of the truth, and the public is being denied access to vital information, and that's really the problem that Bill McKenna and his handlers have. It's not that the personalities involved here. It's what we bring forth. It's what we're reporting. It's the fact that we're reporting. They don't want reporting. They want infotainment. That's really what it is.
So now the question is, does the public want infotainment?
Yeah.
Does the public want...
That's where I was just going to go. Now, at this point, we really need the community of Woodstock to support us and to speak on our behalf and to say, we want this station. This means any one of you people out there could come in here, any person in Woodstock, or I believe the adjoining areas, this thing of you have to be a resident of Woodstock. People from Bearsville should be able to come in this studio and do shows. People from Hurley, if they wanted to come in. We have so much dead air. To to say only Woodstock residents can do it is ridiculous. You would rather have blank screen than allow someone from outside the community to come in here, you know? And I don't even know that this guy Chase, who they're fixing all this equipment up for, if he's a member of the Woodstock, is he a resident of Woodstock? You know, we don't know that, you know, but they're sure catering to this guy, you know.
And Andy Animal.
And Andy Animal, you know, whose father's owns Marketech, who gave us a lot of this junk equipment, you know.
That's what Randy Steele always said.
That's what Randy said. Randy said most of this equipment that Marketech sold to the town, probably at a high price, they got from dumpster diving. That's what Randy Steele always said. And Randy knew more about the technical end of this studio than I do.
She said they had leftovers from ABC and stuff like that. And they took the best for Saugerties.
Right.
That's right.
And gave the worst here.
Yeah. And Saugerties got all the good equipment, and we got the dregs, you know. And I'm sure that money from the budget that should have been for the public access studio went to Marketech. Now his son wants to come in here and start doing shows. Now, I don't mind if he's doing commercial shows, and I don't even mind if, you know, if a normal, like, I haven't put any of my shows on a commercial channel, but if I wanted to, there's a few shows that I might want to put because I'd have a larger audience. So I'm not against that, but to come in here just for the purpose of making shows here that you intend to put on commercial, that's a little over the top as far as I'm concerned.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is the real central issue. Coming into this studio, physically, obviously, it's very humble. What are they coming in for, really? It's for our audience. Even the name Paula Gloria, despite me not being able to get on my YouTube account for many years, it still has in the search engines a certain amount of traction. Remember when you were in Manhattan and they wanted you to go on to that show with the guy who built burritos on his belly?
Yeah.
And remember how you refused to do it? What they were trying to do was cross-market and grab your ratings. That's what this is really about. You know, George, who they're questioning as being a member of the Woodstock community, even with 80 shows and 2 years, and with the internet now slanted against you, because I know what it's like when it works for you and when it works against you.
I watch my YouTube numbers go up and then go down and then go up and then go down. It's almost laughable, but since they must have noticed that I was noticing, so now they don't even tell me what my shows are. That's true.
Yeah.
They don't even tell me what my shows are doing.
See, at one time when YouTube was first launching, you could see all your statistics. You could see not only how many hits you had, you saw how long people watched it, all kinds of data.
Yep.
All this data exists for us in this TV studio. And I also believe on the radio.
And we don't have access to it.
And we don't have access to the ratings. But if we don't know the ratings, we don't understand how viciously those who would like to think they are our slave masters are playing us. And our ratings, the better they are, the more dangerous for us, unless we're in a position to control the fruits of our labor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dangerous
intellectual
position.
property. Steve's got something to say.
Steve wants to say something. Now, we have to turn the camera for Steve because we don't have 3 cameras here in the studio.
But there's some dead cameras.
But we got some great lighting.
Well, let's correct that. Let's be more accurate, Joe. We do have 3 cameras, but only 1 out of 3 is working.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's the crazy thing. We're not asking anybody to buy a brand new camera. We just want 3 cameras that are working.
Right.
It really helps to have 3 cameras.
And these cameras probably do work. They've been disabled, is my opinion. But
Yeah.
don't have to turn back to me.
Go back
ahead.
to Steve.
Anyway, what I want to say is that along with free speech, we also have the right to freedom of press.
Yes.
Okay? Now, freedom of press protects the right to obtain and public information or opinions without government censorship or fear of punishment. Censorship occurs when the government examines publications and productions and prohibits the use of material it finds offensive. Freedom of press applies to all types of printed and broadcast material,
There you go.
including books, newspapers, magazines, pamphlets, films, radio, and television programs. Now, if you're not allowed in the studio, then you are basically censored from publishing any of your material. And yet you have a right under freedom of press to have access to the airwaves. No one can stop you from having access to the airwaves. That's key words there, folks. Access to the airwaves. And that's what the whole principle behind public access TV. They didn't do it because they were our friends. Just like they didn't give you Social Security because they were worried about you and they said, oh, we better give them Social Security. People fought for those rights to get Social Security, to get unemployment insurance, to get public access TV. It was a forced issue. It was forced because the Constitution protected it. And somebody made it happen. And it wasn't always that way. I think it was like in the 60s or 70s when they realized they had to make public access available to the public. They have access to the airwaves. Because you know what? Nobody owns the airwaves. We do. We own the airwaves. And if they can use it, we can use it. So that is what's happening. And if a person... I mean, it would be bad enough if they came in and they said, look, you're not going to show that video that you have. That would be censorship. But when they come in, they say, you know what? We're not going to let you show anything. It's censorship and a violation of freedom of press, which we all have and was put in the Constitution to protect the democracy. The press is here in this studio. The citizen press that is reporting on the politics of this local community. And the politicians of this local community have no right to stop the publication of the views of the public. And Joe and Paula and George are the public.
Thanks.
And the rest of us producers and everybody out there. Anybody can be on public access TV. All you have to do is sign up and learn how to run the equipment, and then you can do it. It's a right to everybody. Nobody can be denied.
And you also, everybody with basic service has a right to get public access. And that's why they're scrambling. Who's going to do it? Verizon, AT&T, blah, blah.
And by the way, I have one other thing I was want. Everybody kind of thinks about, oh, we got Donald Trump, this dictator running our country, and he's a madman. He's power mad. Oh, well, you know what? We got a local dictator that's power mad right here in Woodstock. His name is Bill McKenna. What's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but wait, I just want to show one more thing here. I have a book here that I really think everybody out there should read. It's by Michael Hayden. He was former director of the National Security Agency and the CIA. It's called The Assault on Intelligence, American National Security in an Age of Lies. And I would recommend everybody to read this book. And for those of you who can't stand Donald Trump, you're going to love this book. And for those of you who think Donald Trump is the cat's pajamas, you really should read this book and see what a lot of the national security people who are there to protect us from outside aggression, from terrorists and things like that.
At home and abroad.
What's that?
At home and abroad.
At home and abroad, yeah. You should read for those people who think Donald Trump is great. You should read what the national security people are saying about this lunatic, you know. And before you run around, Donald Trump is my president, Mr. Great President. Know a little of the facts, you know. And when the ex-director of the National Security Agency and CIA is telling he can say things that the new guys that are under Trump can't say because, just like Clayton Keefe is afraid to give me the key and Paula the key because dictator McKenna might fire him. Paula's going to show us. We were protesting on the green with our signs. That one says Bill McKenna violates the law, violates constitutional rights. And the other one, Bill McKenna thinks he's the Lord God Emperor of Woodstock. And if you come to the picnic for the volunteers picnic, you'll be able to see our signs because we're going to bring them here. And there's actually two sides to these signs. Do you have the other side of the signs? Did we get that?
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Tune in next week. Or come to the volunteers picnic.
Yeah. But everybody should read this. The Assault on Intelligence by Michael V. Hayden. American National Security in an Age of Lies. And he really exposes Donald Trump from a national security point of view, and it's amazing. It's one. I also read the Comey book, the ex-director of the FBI, and what he says about Trump, now, and how you got to read it, folks. I'm not going to tell you about the book, but everyone should read these books. Comey's book, the ex-director of the FBI, what he says about Trump, and what Michael V. Hayden says. And before you people brag, you people who are for Trump, before you start waving your Trump flag all over the place, you should hear what, people in the intelligence community, these are people who really do the research and who know a lot of stuff that we don't even know, are saying about Trump as president.
Do you want to say anything about that?
Sure.
You want to let George take on for a few minutes.
Well, I was just looking over the Woodstock Way Motel, and I think it's really quite worth putting it back up on screen here. If
Okay, I got a copy. You can read it.
Oh, I was just going to say, but okay, you're going to do that? Well, all right, so there's not much to read on here. It just says from their website, woodstockway.com, the property. Note they have included all homes and businesses abutting Tinker Street, Naher Street, and was that Sargent Street, Quinn Street Drive, or Hillcrest. And the actual parcel owned by Woodstock Way Motel looks to me to be about a little bit, almost half of what they're showing on their website. The boundary of the Woodstock Way Motel includes a little tiny piece of the water front and water. And it has an interesting jog into the area between Hillcrest, Naher, and Tinker Street, but it doesn't occupy the whole chunk like it shows in the top illustration. No, that's okay. But well, they can see it on screen there. They can see the actual line there. Yeah, and what I was thinking about meditating when I was looking at this earlier is that it's come to my attention that two of the major investing players, or I guess perhaps even builder would be Halliburton, and Giuliani is a name that has come up.
Yeah.
And you know, I know that Woodstock tends to see itself as a Democrat stronghold, but these are very Republican kind of sounding names, and you know, on the face of it, I have a lot of good friends who are Republicans. So that's not about individuals. This is about, you know, organizations such as Halliburton, and you know, Woodstock's historical message of creativity and peace and you know, brotherhood and sisterhood and all this kind of thing is really very contradictory when a large base of our economy here seems to be tied together with you know, the war machine, such as Rotron, which makes electronic products for, I think, guidance systems for weapons, this kind of thing. I'm not exactly certain. However, you know, with this in mind, it seems awfully egregious to me that there were some 33 variances and some many thousands of feet of intrusion, property intrusion. And I guess that's what we're looking at on these maps to some degree. I don't have those statistics. I think Paul is looking them up right now. And I know from my own, you know, building experience here in Woodstock that I have had a couple of clients who, you know, really were put through to some serious shenanigans just to get a variance. 1,959 infringement feet. Wait a minute. Who gets 1,959 infringement feet? And this, Paula, has that been like approved? This is okay with the town, or is this eminent domain?
Well, this is why Joe gives a lot of attention to a man named Howard Harris, who oftentimes writes in the Woodstock Times in the letters to the editor, often against Bill McKenna. So Joe always gets a chuckle out of Howard Harris's letters. But Howard Harris used to, I think, be the head of the zoning board. And now there's an empty seat on the zoning board, and they won't let Howard Harris on.
Really?
Yeah, and what else was it? The attorney.
Can they do that?
The attorney. The attorney who trained the zoning board is also the attorney for this Halliburton Giuliani, and it says here Medenbach and Eggers are the architects or land surveyors.
Uh-huh.
It's an outfit in Stone Ridge. You know, they always bring an out-of-town hitman. You know, when the annex wanted to be done, when the wealthy people wanted to donate, you know, the local architects got annoyed by that, couldn't do it. But now they get these guys from Stone Ridge to do this. You know, you know, when it's, you know, walking the edge of legality, then they bring somebody in from out of town. When it's a donation by wealthy people, like for the annex on the library, then the locals get upset because they want the work. So, back to you.
Okay. No, I want to jump back. No, I want to jump back in. I
All right.
Joe's gonna
you
jump
still got
back in.
that up.
It's all right.
Okay. I really want to ask again. We really need support of this community for public access. And I'm going to give you Bill McKenna's number again. Please write it down. Bill McKenna, 679-2113, extension 17. Call Bill McKenna and tell him, stop violating the rights of public access producers. Let Joe and Paula and George Conant back in the studio. Stop violating the Constitution. And I would prefer if Bill would just stop this so I don't have to go after him. I can go after him civilly and sue him. I can lien his property, or I can go after him criminally in federal courts and use the federal prosecutor to go after him, not me, you know. And I would prefer not to do that. I've been trying to talk sense into this man and given him every option. I put in 2 liens that I could go after his property. And I've held back a whole year on my 3rd lien. My 3rd notice of lien. After my 3rd notice of lien, I can lien his property. But I've held it back for a whole year in hopes that I could reason with this man and say, stop what you're doing. What you're doing is illegal. What you're doing is criminal. What you're doing violates our rights. But he feels I'm the town dictator. I run Woodstock, and the town board are a bunch of yes men who do anything that I want. So he feels like he's got all the power. It's time for the people in this community to take this guy down a notch and say, you don't have the power. We, the people in this community, we elected you. We gave you the job. You work for us, not dictate to us, you know. And they've run up the bills, and that's why I'm against putting the library in these guys' hands. Like I said about the community center, it was a $900,000 low bid. They could have raised the money. They probably had the money that they could have just paid it off. But instead, they floated a lien. So it's 20 years down the road. Floated a bond. So it's 20 years down the road. Then the taxpayers are going to have to pay. By the time they pay off this community center, which no longer is a community center, it's now a theater for the performing arts, you know. And this studio, they're trying to drive us out of here so that this can become a commercial venture. And it's not as much the studio that they want, it's the channel. Channel 23 is valuable, you know. We watched it happen down in Manhattan. There was Channel 14. Channel 14 got sold, which used to be a public access channel. That got sold to the vice president, Al Gore.
No. You're thinking of Channel 57.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But Channel 14 years before went to AT&T, and AT&T used that for all their 9/11 first, the 911 calls.
Yeah.
The emergency calls.
Okay.
That means that AT&T was telephone. Why did they get into cable? Because now everything is going to one line. Electricity, Central Hudson, that's why Steve Romine's case is important. Our case is important because of the cable. And then let's say, then the internet and telephone. Telephone, internet, cable, and power. 4 big things are coming together. And right here in this TV studio, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, can I jump in for a second?
Wait, let me finish about 57. Because I want to make a point about this studio.
Let's go back to 57, okay?
Channel 57. No.
We'll go back. Let's get George. He'll lose his thought. Okay, go on.
I already did.
Oh, sorry.
Just go ahead.
Okay, 57.
All right. Channel 57 down in Manhattan was a public access channel. That channel, they moved. It became valuable because all the producers, a lot of people were watching it because the public access producers made it a valuable channel. Now, in TV channels and stuff, by the amount of people watching, puts a value on that channel. If you got 1 million people watching a channel, when you sell commercials, you can say to commercials, we got 1 million viewers, so we're going to charge a lot of money. Right? So when the TV producers down in Manhattan made Channel 57 a valuable channel, then the politicians and some flim-flams down in the studio down there sold off that Channel 57 and moved the producers that used to be on Channel 57 up to what was it, like 1,993. How many people click up to 1,993? Not that many, but 57 was an easy one to click up to, and people were used to going there. So now they took the popular public access producers and moved them to a channel where nobody could find them, and they stole their ratings, and they sold it to Al Gore, the Vice President of the United States. Al Gore tried running it for a while, but he didn't have the content that people wanted to watch it, so he started losing money. So then they sold it for big money to Al Jazeera. Al Gore sold, no, Al Gore, when he started losing money, and then he sold that channel to Al Jazeera. You know, here's the President of the United States just sold to Al Jazeera the channel that used to belong to the public access.
No, Joe, it was Current TV that flipped over to Al Gore. Current TV was kind of like a 501c3 stringing all over the country, giving little grants for public access shows. But they were losing money, millions of dollars.
Right.
And that's when they made the pitch. And Al Gore didn't know because it was pitched to the Qataris, and since Al Gore likes to be green, doing it to the oil-rich Qataris was you know...
He didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it, and so
But
they
then
just offered him more money.
And he did it. It
Because
just
it's
shows
illegal.
politicians
So
will do anything for money.
Before we wind up, I just wanted to get my last thought in.
Yeah, go.
I just got to say, folks, that it's really kind of interesting that as my show really started taking on the wireless hazard of the 5G rollout, that I suddenly come under this attack from the town and get shoved off the real estate, so to speak. And that's the kind of reporting that is really important for our future as a species, is to understand these kinds of dangers with this wireless technology, and that I started advocating for the fiber optic option because it is safer, it is more secure, because, listen up folks, all of this stuff that's being broadcast over the waves, over this Wi-Fi wireless technology, is insecure. It is the most insecure way of broadcasting or transmitting your emails or information of any kind. Whereas your actual hardline fiber optic cable has all of the advantages and bandwidth of wireless, but none of the hazards. And that's I just find that fascinating coincidence, just as we were doing this show tonight, that we took on the wireless technology, and now I'm under attack to not broadcast. So I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and thank you all for watching.
And I want to elaborate on what George was saying a little, because there's a lot more to that story that a lot of people don't know about. The fiber optics, first of all, the fiber optics was in the 90s was laid out halfway everywhere. It was halfway. It's in the ground, but they didn't complete it, and they switched over to wireless. But one place did complete it, and that was Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's totally fiber optics. And that town, that municipality, is prospering unbelievably with fiber optics. And so what happened is the industry saw what was happening in Chattanooga, and they went ahead and they convinced. Well, they used their political their strong arm tactics with their controlled politicians in the surrounding counties of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they actually made fiber optics illegal. They made fiber optics illegal. And then they went further, and they now have fiber optics illegal in 40% of the communities in the country. Why would anybody make fiber optics illegal? What possible reason could you give to make fiber optics illegal?
Because it's not harmful.
It's not harmful. There is no reason to make fiber optics illegal except to control the public and their right to safe transmission of the signal.
Yeah.
Instead, They went with the harmful mode of transmission of signal with wireless. And now they're going to try to force it down our throats. They've already forced it down our throats with 4G and cell towers. Now they're going to try to force it down our throats with new infrastructure and much more harmful 5G because it pulsates much more. The 5G pulsates much more than 4G. It's the pulsing that is so harmful, as military documents show. So the point is, there's a safe way to do it. And this fiber optics is the safest. It's the fastest. Wireless travels at the speed of light. Fiber optics travels at the speed, at the speed of sound. Wireless travels at the speed of sound. Fiber optics travels at the speed of light. And it's fast.
It's superior.
And because it's hardwired, there's no way to hack it. So it's free from hacking. It's safe. And it's the best way to go. But of course, they're forcing wireless down our throats, and they're controlling the airwaves. They're controlling the transmission of the signal, the mode of the transmission of the signal, and they want to control the airwaves for political reasons. And so as far as what's going on here in Woodstock, on a local level, the local politicians have made a big mistake. I'm going to give them a little bit benefit of the doubt, and I'm not going to be so hard on them. And if I was in Joe's shoes, I would be even more hard on them because it's happening to Joe and Paula and George. And so when it happens to you, it looks a whole lot different than when it's not happening to you. Just like with me and the smart meters. It happened to me, and I'm going for the throat to the Central Hudson and the CEO and the president. But this hasn't happened to me. It's happened to my fellow producers. But I'm going to give the local politicians a little benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say they made a huge mistake. I'm not going to assign motive or intent because I honestly don't know. Nobody knows anybody's heart except God. And so I'm going to say they've made a huge mistake. But now that I've really examined the issue a lot more than I did before when this first happened, and I'm seeing that we have a right, the public has a right to the airwaves. That's part of our constitutional right to free speech and free press. And you cannot, no one in the government can control the material that we put in our speech and in the press, and let alone not allow us completely not to have any right to the airwaves. That's a violation of our constitutional right and our common. We each own a piece of the airwaves. We each have a right. They do not own the airwaves. The town of Woodstock does not own the airwaves. Time Warner does not own the airwaves. That's why we have this public access TV station. So anyway, I just want to put that in there. And I want to thank my guests for coming on the show tonight and letting the public be heard. A full 2 hours. And thanks for coming on, Joe. Thanks for coming on, George. Thanks for teching Paula.
And
doing a great job as usual. Incredible job Paula does. She is truly professional and truly a professional broadcaster. And so glad to have her because we'd all be lost without her.
And Ellen Vogel.
And Ellen, thank you, Ellen. And I hope that this gets out to the town board, every member of the town board, and it's time to re-examine this issue. When things happen, people, do things on the spur of the moment sometimes and make mistakes and make errors, but you need to re-look at this issue and re-examine it and see what you're doing. Because what you're doing is not accurate and not constitutional.
And violates the law.
It violates the Constitution that was there to protect are inalienable rights. And these are inalienable rights. They cannot be taken away. Inalienable means that which cannot be taken away. And Joe has a right to the airways, and George has a right to the airways, and Paula has a right to the airways. That doesn't mean we all have to agree with each other. We don't have to agree with each other's everything that we're all saying. But I agree that we all have a right to the airwaves, and that's what this public access TV is here for, the public. And we're the public, okay? So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. That's the Woodstock Truth Squad with my guests Joe Barton, George Conant, and Paula Gloria. And hopefully they'll be back for some more shows like we had tonight. It was a great show, guys. Did a great job.
Thank you. And let me just jump in one more time. Please, people out there, support public access. Call Bill McKenna. The number is 679-2113, extension 17. And please tell Bill McKenna that the Board of TV Producers should be the ones to oversee this station. We know most what this station needs. We know the equipment that it needs. You know, we have politicians deciding, oh, they put these lights in. You know, we didn't ask for these lights. We were doing fine with the lights we had. Now they want to put a panel across. We don't need that panel. What we need is cassette decks that work, a television, a telephone that we can have call-ins on. We need 3 cameras that work. There's things we need in this.
We need to be online.
Oh yeah, and we need to be back online. We used to be on the World Wide Web, and the towns refused to pay for it anymore, and we were off the World Wide Web. But even when we were on the World Wide Web, right in the middle of our show, they threw commercials. Public access is supposed to be commercial free. The town should have saw to it when they had us on the World Wide Web that we were on a channel that was not throwing commercials. We don't do this for commercial purposes.
I had one last thought, but all right.
George,
Anyway.
one last thought.
Go ahead, George.
People, you just can't let someone else do it. You know, the individual does make a difference, but, you know, in a situation like this, we can't do this by ourselves. Y'all got to help.
So anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight. Woodstock Truth Squad signing out, and stay tuned for next Monday night. And by the way, I want to just say, this coming Monday on the Woodstock Truth Squad radio show, Monday night at 7 o'clock on 104.1, I have a guest, PhD Guy McPherson, abrupt climate change climatologist. Have you heard of him, George?
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be on. He's going to be in the studio live with me.
Heavy duty.
He's going to be in the live. You want to come on the show, Joe?
Yeah,
I'd love to. Come on. He's going to be in the radio.
Okay.
And then Wednesday, we have him in Mountain View Studio at 7 o'clock for a full presentation with the full screen, a huge, beautiful movie screen we have with his slides.